Part 1. A gentle beginning, soft, calming voice, imagined welcome. Tonight, we'll take a quiet journey together. A journey not through empires or grand battles, but through the soft, almost invisible story of something that rests quietly by our doors. The humble doorbell, not the kind that chimes with electronics or wireless tones, but the idea of a simple signal, letting someone inside know that someone waits outside. You can settle in now, perhaps lying back, allowing the weight of your day to rest somewhere else. Let the pace slow, like an old brass pendulum swinging gently, because the history of the doorbell is not rushed. It's a quiet story, one of knocks, rattles, strings, and small sounds in still air. Pause, slow breath in the narration before the doorbell. A world of knocks long before metal bells and buttons. There were doors of wood and hands to knock upon them. Imagine the earliest dwellings. Perhaps a rough wooden door set into stone, or a woven reed mat covering the entrance to a hut. Visitors would scratch softly, or tap gently with a stick. In some villages, it was common to announce oneself with a small cough, or a rhythmic call of the homeowner's name. It was less about interruption, and more about polite presence. The Roman tintinnabulum. In the Roman era, larger homes began to use something more deliberate. Some doors had bronze or brass plates, not to knock upon, but to rattle gently, producing a chime-like sound. Others hung a small bronze bell called a tintinnabulum, its delicate voice signaling that a guest had arrived. The sound was clear, but not harsh, a sound meant for listening servants, or for shopkeepers who might be busy counting coins or arranging amphorae. Medieval castles and quiet gates by the Middle Ages. Castles and fortified manors rarely needed a doorbell as we think of it. A heavy knock at the gate, the call of a guard, or the deep thud of a wooden mallet was the expected greeting. But in smaller homes, something new began to appear. The door knocker. These were often iron rings, sometimes shaped like lions or grotesque faces, meant both to make sound and to ward away misfortune. The clang of iron on wood was enough to travel through the thick walls of stone cottages. Still, it was not an urgent sound. It was part of the gentle rhythm of village life. Part 2. Renaissance. Sounds at the door. The Renaissance brought not only art and science into daily life, but also an attention to the details of the home. In cities like Florence, Venice, and Antwerp, homes were no longer just places of shelter, but small stages for the life of a family. Doors were carved more finely. Brass and bronze fittings became works of art, and at the door, instead of a simple iron ring, there might be a finely crafted knocker, shaped like a cherub, a dolphin, or a curling vine. Some houses used a different approach entirely. A servant's rope might pass from the outside to a small bell inside. A guest could pull gently, and somewhere within the house, a soft metallic ring would be heard. It was not a noise of urgency. It was a polite whisper of metal against metal, announcing that someone waited patiently. Part 3. Quiet signals. In the 18th and 19th centuries passed, and cities grew busier. Door signaling became more common, especially in the grand townhouses of Europe. By the 1700s, mechanical bell pulls had become fashionable. Imagine stepping up to a polished wooden door, its surface gleaming in the afternoon light. Beside it, a small handle of brass, linked by hidden wires and pulleys to a bell deep within the house. A gentle pull, and far away in the servants' quarters, a sound would bloom. Perhaps a high, delicate chime for the front door, a lower tone for the tradesman's entrance. The household knew exactly where the caller waited. In this way, a doorbell was as much about organization as it was about sound. Part 4. Victorian refinement. Victorian age loved order and devices. By the mid-1800s, new technology allowed doorbells to become even more precise. There were spring-loaded bells, where a press of the thumb could send a small hammer spinning against the bell's side, and in more advanced homes, the electric doorbell began to appear. These were not like the buzzing tones we think of today. They were often single, clear chimes, powered by a small current from batteries hidden inside. It was a moment of quiet wonder to press a button outside and hear the response from within. Part 5. Early 20th century doorbells. By the early 1900s, doorbells had become a common part of city life. Apartment blocks in New York, Paris, and London had neat rows of buttons, each connected to a single flat. Some were mechanical, others fully electric. The sound was often tuned, not harsh, but melodic, like a tiny note from a piano key. And in small towns, a single home might still have a hand-cranked bell beside the door. The ring of such a bell was unmistakable, slow, cheerful, and familiar. Part 6. The mid-century doorbell. By the middle of the 20th century, the doorbell was a familiar companion. In almost every home in post-war neighborhoods, new houses were built in rows, each with its neat little pathway, each with its door, and each with a button that carried a promise. The promise that when pressed, a sound would travel into the heart of the home. The sounds of mid-century doorbells were varied, but rarely intrusive. Some gave a single chime, like a polite knock of sound. Others had two notes, the well-known ding-dong that would come to define the sound of arrival in small towns. You might hear it on a quiet afternoon, a neighbor arriving with a pie, a postman bringing a parcel, children calling for their friends, and, in cities, the doorbell became a practical part of life. A simple press of a finger opened the way to conversation, to connection, and sometimes to unexpected moments. Part 7. Everyday life around the doorbell. Easy to forget that a doorbell is part of countless small stories. In a modest home in the 1960s, the bell might ring just before dinner, the sound mixing with the aroma of a roast in the oven, the hum of a radio, and the quiet rustle of newspapers. On summer evenings, the bell might chime softly, and someone would walk slowly to answer, perhaps wiping their hands on a dish towel. In winter, the sound might echo in a home warmed by a fireplace. Outside, a visitor could be brushing snow from their shoulders. Each ring carried a moment, and each moment was part of life. Part 8. Late 20th century. Familiar sounds. As decades passed, doorbells began to sound more uniform. Mass-produced chimes filled houses in suburbs around the world. The two-tone ding-dong became a kind of shared language, a sound you could hear in the United States, in Europe, in Australia, and it would mean the same thing. But there were still variations. Some households had long, cascading chimes. Others had tiny, cheerful electronic tones. And sometimes the doorbell fell silent altogether, replaced by the simple knock once more. In small rural towns, knocking was still common. It was personal, and the sound of knuckles on wood still carried its quiet charm. Part 9. The doorbell today. Doorbells are as common as ever, but they have taken new forms. There are video doorbells, smart devices that send notifications to phones. There are musical chimes that can be set to any melody. Yet, Despite all the changes, the essence remains the same. Someone outside, someone inside, and a signal that bridges the space between. The sound of connection, the sound of arrival. A small sound, but one that carries centuries of quiet history. Part 10. A day in a Victorian house with a doorbell. Let's pause for a moment and imagine a single day in a Victorian townhouse somewhere in London. Around the year 1885, the morning light falls softly on the polished brass door handle. Beside it, the bell pull, a small brass handle connected by thin wire to a bell. In the servants' quarters, it is quiet for most of the morning. A milk delivery has already come at dawn. The coalman has stacked fresh coal neatly in the cellar chute, and then a soft pull of the bell. A chime rings far inside, not loud, but clear enough to be noticed. A housemaid, perhaps still wearing her apron dusted with flour, wipes her hands and goes to the door. It might be a tradesman, bringing vegetables wrapped in paper, or perhaps a neighbour, calling in to exchange a few words before continuing along the cobbled street. The door closes softly, and life in the house resumes. Part 11. Afternoon calls. In the late afternoon, the bell might ring again. This time, it could be a visitor arriving for tea. Perhaps a carriage has pulled up to the curb. A soft rustle of skirts, the sound of polished boots on the steps. Another gentle pull of the bell handle. The sound travels through the wires, rings in the hallway, and a footman moves to answer. Tea is served in the parlour. Outside, the sound of horses' hooves is softened by the gentle hum of the city, and the doorbell rests once again, waiting quietly for its next small moment. Part 12. A rural home in 1920, far from the city, in a quiet countryside home in 1920. The doorbell is different. Here it is not a fine brass mechanism. It is a simple hand-cranked bell, mounted just beside the door. A visitor approaches on a bicycle, dust rising faintly from the gravel path. They pause, turn the small crank, and the bell inside the kitchen rings with a cheerful sound. Inside, someone wipes their hands from kneading bread dough, walks across a cool wooden floor, and opens the door to greet them. There is no rush, no sense of urgency, just the gentle rhythm of a rural day, punctuated by a small ring of sound. Part 13. The doorbell in a mid-century suburb. It is 1955. A row of new houses stands along a clean suburban street. The lawns are neat, the driveways quiet. At one home, a polished brass button sits beside the door. It is pressed in the late afternoon. Inside, a two-note chime echoes through the hallway. A family dog perks up at the sound. Children pause their board game. Someone moves toward the door. Outside, it might be a neighbor, or perhaps the postman with a small package. The doorbell is not just a sound. It is a thread in the daily pattern of life. Part 14. The doorbell in small moments. It's easy to imagine hundreds of such moments. A soft ring on a rainy afternoon. The sound mingling with the patter of drops on the window. A gentle chime on a cold morning. The door opening to reveal a visitor. Their breath curling into the frosty air. Or a simple knock at a cottage door in springtime. The scent of flowers drifting in as the door swings open. Across centuries, these small sounds have marked the quiet rhythm of daily life. Part 15. A city apartment in 1930. It is a quiet morning in 1930. The city outside hums faintly, but in this small apartment building, life moves more slowly. The entrance is a heavy oak door. Beside it, a row of brass buttons. each carefully labeled with the names of the tenants. A delivery boy arrives. His cap is tilted slightly, a small paper parcel tucked under his arm. He presses one of the buttons. Far above, in a fourth-floor flat, a single chime rings. Not loud, but clear enough to be heard over the faint ticking of a war clock. A tenant steps softly to the door, and the day moves forward with that simple exchange. Part 16. A rural farmhouse in 1940, far from the bustle of the city, on a farm. In 1940, the doorbell is still more mechanical than electric. The visitor lifts a small metal latch attached to a string that runs inside. The string connects to a simple bell mounted above the kitchen door. Inside, the farmer's wife is peeling apples at the table. She hears the sound, a bright, cheerful jingle. She dries her hands, walks to the door, and opens it to find a neighbor stopping by for a short visit. The air smells faintly of hay, the fields outside bathed in afternoon light. Part 17a. Shop door in 1950 in a small town in 1950. The bell is not at the home's door, but at the shop's. Above the entrance, a tiny bell is mounted on a curved piece of brass. When the door opens, the bell rings softly. A customer enters, bringing a faint chill from outside. The shopkeeper, standing behind the counter, looks up and smiles. The sound of the bell is both greeting and announcement. A small, simple thing, but essential to the life of the shop. Part 18. A quiet evening in 1965. In 1965, a suburban home is settling into the evening. Dinner has been eaten. The dishes are washed. A radio plays softly in the background. Suddenly, the two-tone chime of the doorbell sounds. It is not loud, not urgent, just a polite reminder that someone waits outside. A family member moves to the door. Perhaps it is a neighbor returning a borrowed book. Perhaps it is simply a friend stopping by for a short chat. The moment is brief, but the sound stays in the mind, a signal of connection. Part 19. A rainy afternoon in 1978. The sky is grey. The windows fogged with soft mist. In a house on the edge of town, the doorbell sounds once a mellow, warm tone. Inside, the owner puts down a cup of tea and moves slowly to the door. Outside stands a friend, umbrella in hand. Raindrops sliding from its edges. The sound of the bell, the smell of rain, the warmth of the home, all of it blends into one gentle moment. Part 20. A neighborhood in 1982. It is 1982, and in a small neighborhood, rows of houses sit under a warm summer sun. Children ride their bicycles in the street. Lawns are trimmed. The air hums with the sound of sprinklers. In one house, the doorbell chimes its familiar notes. The sound is clear but not rushed. Inside, someone pauses a television program, the soft static of the set humming in the background. They walk to the door, where a neighbor stands holding a borrowed lawn tool, offering a smile. The exchange is brief, but the moment lingers. The doorbell rests quietly once more. Part 21. A small apartment in 1991. The city has grown. Apartment. Buildings now have sleek buzzers instead of old brass bells. In 1991, a tenant presses a small plastic button by the entrance of a building far above. The faint buzz is heard. A voice calls softly from the intercom, recognizing the visitor with a soft click. The door unlocks, and the building's hallway fills with the muted sound of footsteps and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. The doorbell has changed, but its purpose remains. A signal, a pause, an opening. Part 22. A suburban home in 1998. It is evening in 1998. The house is filled with the scent of dinner. A family sits around the table. The doorbell rings. A gentle melody, slightly more musical than the older tones. One person rises to answer. It is a neighbor returning a dish from the last gathering. The sound of the doorbell fits into the evening as naturally as the clink of cutlery or the soft laughter at the table. Part 23, A Quiet Morning in 2005. It is 2005, and the world is quieter. In the early hours in a modern home, the doorbell is now wireless. Its chime is soft, almost like a gentle note from a wind chime. A package is being delivered. The delivery driver presses the button, waits a moment, and sets the box by the door. Inside, the soft chime echoes just once. The day continues, unhurried. And still, Part 24, The Doorbell Today. Doorbells are smaller, smarter, and often paired with quiet technology. A press of a button may send a notification to a phone. A video screen may show a visitor's face, and yet, the essence is unchanged. The sound, whether a chime, a melody, or a single tone, still carries the same meaning it has carried for centuries. Someone waits at the door. Someone inside is listening. And for a moment, the distance between them is bridged by a single, gentle sound. Part 25, The Doorbell at Restand Now. The story of the doorbell grows quieter still. The centuries have passed. The wooden doors of medieval cottages, the polished brass of Victorian houses, the painted front doors of mid-century homes, all have felt the gentle touch of visitors who came and went. The bells themselves, from the bronze tintinnabulum of ancient Rome to the simple two-note chimes of the 20th century, to the soft electronic tones of today, all have shared the same simple purpose: a call, a signal, a polite request to enter. And in this way, the doorbell has always been more than a sound. It has been a moment, a pause, a small invitation between two worlds, outside and inside. Part 26, The Fading Sound. If you listen now, you might almost imagine those sounds drifting across time. The soft rap of knuckles on a wooden door in 1400. The cheerful ring of a hand-cranked bell in 1890. The clear, bright tone of an electric chime in 1950. The gentle hum of a wireless doorbell in 2000. Each sound, when it has done its work, fades back into the air, and in the stillness that follows, life continues at its calm, steady pace. Part 27, Settling. Into quiet. The door is closed now. The sound has faded. The home is still. Somewhere outside, a path lies silent in the soft light of evening. Perhaps the air carries a faint breeze, perhaps the scent of flowers, perhaps the sound of a bird calling. In the distance, inside, the rooms are quiet. The sound of the doorbell is only a memory now, resting like all the other small sounds that have filled the days and faded softly into nights. Part 28, Drifting Often. So the story of the doorbell, from the earliest knocks to the most modern chimes, comes to rest for tonight. You can imagine it. Quiet now, waiting patiently by the door. It will sound again another day, when someone calls. But for now, the house, the street, and the doorbell itself can rest. Let the stillness grow deeper. Let the day slip further away. The sound grows softer and softer until it is only a whisper, and you can drift, just as the story drifts, into quiet, into calm, into sleep. Part 29. The quiet closing. And now, there is nothing more the story needs to say. The long path of the doorbell, from the gentle taps of ancient doors to the soft tones of today, has grown quiet. It rests, just as the house rests, just as the night rests around you. There is no need to hurry, no need to turn the page, no need to wait for another sound. Everything is still, everything is calm. The door is closed, the path outside is empty. The world has grown hushed, softened by the folds of evening, and you can rest here too. In this stillness, in this calm, let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift, let them grow lighter and softer and quieter still. The story will stay here, just beyond the door, quiet and patient. You can drift as you wish, letting each word fade into the space between thoughts, each moment dissolve into stillness, each pause carry you a little further, until the story is only a whisper, and the whisper is only silence, and the silence is sleep. Victorian era, more gentle moments morning. At the townhouse the sun has only just risen over the rooftops of London. A thin layer of fog still lingers, softening the edges of every building. At a tall Victorian townhouse, the brass door pull glimmers faintly in the pale light. The street is quiet, save for the distant sound of carriage wheels on cobblestone. A gentle pull at the bell handle breaks the silence. Inside, the faint ring travels along the polished hallway. Footsteps sound slowly on the wooden floorboards. The door opens, and a milkman is greeted politely. There is no rush, only the beginning of another calm day. Afternoon callers by afternoon. The street has grown a little livelier. Shops are open, and the sound of horses mixes with the murmur of voices. A small carriage pulls up outside the townhouse. A visitor steps down, the hem of their coat brushing the clean pavement. They pause at the door, take hold of the bell pull, and tug gently. Inside, a warm chime sounds again. In the drawing room, the fire crackles softly. The bell is answered, and tea is prepared. Outside, the city continues at its own quiet pace. Evening quiet as evening approaches. The lamplighter moves along the street, touching each gas lamp with a flame until the street is bathed in a warm glow. The doorbell remains still now. No visitors are expected. Only the sound of the city settling into night fills the air. Inside, the household is calm. Dinner has been served. The rooms are lit by soft golden light. The doorbell rests quietly by the door, its work done for the day. Mid-century era, more daily life. Summer afternoon in the suburbs. It is 1956. The houses in the neighborhood are modest, each with a neat garden in front. The air is warm. Somewhere, a lawnmower hums softly. At one door, the familiar two-tone chime rings. Inside, a family dog stirs, pads softly toward the door, and waits as someone answers. A neighbor stands outside, bringing over a plate of fresh-baked cookies. The doorbell has again brought a small, gentle moment of connection. Winter, evening in winter, the air is crisp and still. Snow has gathered lightly on the rooftops. The doorbell chimes once, a clear note that cuts softly through the quiet. Inside, the warm scent of stew fills the air. A family sits together in the living room, the glow of the fireplace casting gentle shadows on the walls. The door is opened to reveal a friend visiting on the way home from work. His coat lightly dusted with snow. The doorbell falls silent again, and the home grows quiet once more. Quiet Sunday morning. Sunday mornings are slow. The streets are calm. Most homes are still. A single ring at the door brings a quiet interruption to the peace. It is the postman, delivering a letter carefully addressed. The sound of the doorbell, the smile exchanged at the door, and the closing of the door again, all happen in calm succession. The rest of the morning returns to its soft rhythm. 1960s. Gentle moments. Autumn afternoon in 1963. The trees are dressed in shades of amber and gold. Leaves drift lazily to the ground, carried by a light breeze. In a quiet neighborhood, the doorbell chimes once. Its sound is soft, barely disturbing the stillness of the autumn day. Inside, a woman in a simple dress sets down her knitting and walks to the door. A neighbor stands there, holding a basket of apples just picked from their tree. The apples are exchanged, the door closes softly, and the home returns to its autumn calm. Summer evening in 1967, the air is warm, carrying the scent of cut grass. Somewhere, a radio plays faintly, its music drifting through open windows. At a modest home, the doorbell rings gently. Children pause their game of cards. Their father rises from his chair. Opening the door, he greets a friend with a smile. The conversation is light, the evening long and unhurried. The door closes again, and the sound of the bell lingers briefly before fading into the summer night. 1970s. Quiet interludes. Spring morning in 1972. Birdsong fills the air outside. The grass is bright with morning dew. The doorbell rings softly, a pleasant, mellow chime. Inside, a pot of coffee sits on the counter, steam rising gently. The sound of the doorbell draws a smile. It is a delivery of fresh bread, still warm. In its paper wrapping, the door closes again. The scent of bread fills the kitchen. The morning continues quietly. Winter afternoon in 1978, the sky outside is a pale grey. Snow lies in neat folds along the rooftops. Inside the house is warm, filled with the faint hum of a heater. The doorbell rings once. A visitor stands outside, shaking the snow from their coat. They step in briefly, bringing with them the crisp scent of cold air. After a short exchange, they step back into the quiet winter street. 1980s. Moments of connection. Summer 1984. The neighborhood hums with the sound of lawn sprinklers. Children ride bicycles along the street, the wheels clicking gently. The doorbell rings at one home, a clean, simple two-note. Chimed up inside, a woman in the kitchen wipes her hands and walks to the door. A neighbor drops off a borrowed gardening tool. The exchange is friendly, unhurried. The door closes again, and the hum of the summer afternoon returns. Rainy day in 1989, raindrops race down the window panes. The streets outside are shiny with water. The doorbell chimes softly. Inside, the television plays quietly in the background. A package is delivered, the box carefully placed just inside the door. The sound of the bell fades. The rain continues. Its steady rhythm. 1990s. Quiet rings and familiar evenings. Spring afternoon in 1992. The windows are open, just a little, letting in the soft scent of blooming flowers. A light breeze moves the curtains. The doorbell rings. A pleasant, electronic toned on inside. Someone pauses a phone conversation, smiling as they move toward the door. It is a neighbor bringing over a small plate of pastries. The exchange is warm, friendly, and brief. The bell rests again, and the home returns to its springtime calm. Autumn evening in 1995, the sky glows, a deep orange as the sun sets. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke. The doorbell chimes twice, its sound clear and gentle. Inside, The family is gathered in the living room, a soft lamp glowing on the table. A friend has come by to drop off a book. The door opens, a short conversation is shared, and the evening settles back into stillness. 2000s calm, familiar chimes. Summer morning in 2002. The day is bright, the air warm. The doorbell rings once, its tones slightly more musical than before. A delivery arrives, a package carefully set down at the doorway. The sound is brief, almost like a small bird's call. Inside, the home stays peaceful, the sound already fading. Rainy day in 2007, the rain falls softly, making a steady rhythm against the windows. The doorbell chimes, just a single tone. Inside, someone sets down their cup of tea and answers the door to greet a friend. They speak quietly, laugh softly, and the door closes once more. The rain continues. Steady and calm. 2010s2. Present the doorbell today, autumn evening in 2015. The air is crisp. Leaves scattered gently along the walkway. The doorbell chimes, a clear note that blends with the evening sounds. Inside, someone checks their phone, the visitor's face visible on a small screen. The door is opened, a warm greeting exchanged, and the home settles once more into the evening calm, quiet. Winter morning in 2023, snow lies neatly along the rooftops. The air is still, the world quiet. A single press of the doorbell sends a soft tone into the home downside. Someone steps quietly to the door, accepts a small delivery, and returns to the warmth inside. The sound fades. The stillness remains. Doorbells. Around the world, gentle scenes. A Japanese home in 1970. The house is small, its wooden frame shaded by a sloping roof. The entrance is marked by a simple step and a carefully swept stone path. A visitor approaches, pauses politely, and presses a small button beside the door. Inside, a soft chime sounds clear but gentle. The host slides open the door, welcoming them inside with quiet words. A Paris apartment in 1964. The narrow street outside is lined with balconies. Flower boxes spill over with color. At a tall apartment building, a brass button beside the entrance is pressed. Inside, a faint bell rings far above. A window opens briefly, a familiar voice calling down. Moments later, the door swings open and footsteps echo softly on the old stone stairs. An Italian village in 1985. In a small Italian village. The afternoon is warm. Shadows stretch lazily across the cobblestones. At a heavy wooden door, a metal bell pull waits. A visitor gives it a short tug. Inside, the sound echoes faintly through the stone house. The door is opened, and the visitor is welcomed into the cool, shaded room. An English cottage in 1950. The cottage sits at the edge of a quiet lane. Its garden is full of lavender and rosemary. A guest arrives, lifting the small latch that rings a bell inside. The sound is cheerful, a light note that matches the stillness of the summer day. The door opens, tea is poured, and the bell falls silent again. Doorbells through the season's quiet weather moments. Foggy morning, the air is cool. A pale mist draped over the street like a soft blanket. The outlines of houses are faint, their roofs just shapes in the fog. A visitor walks quietly to a door, presses the bell. Inside, the soft chime blends almost perfectly with the stillness outside. The door opens gently, and a greeting is exchanged. In hushed voices, the fog remains, wrapping the world in quiet. Summer rain, the sky is pale grey, raindrops falling in a steady rhythm. The path to the house glistens with water at the doorway. The bell is pressed, its sound gentle, its tone almost joining in with the rain. Inside, the air smells faintly of freshly brewed tea. The visitor steps inside, umbrella folding shut, the rain continuing softly beyond the closed door. Autumn wind leaves swirl along the pathway, their colors bright against the cool air. A wind moves through the trees, carrying the scent of the season. The doorbell rings once, its sound traveling warmly into the house. Inside, someone steps to the door, welcoming a guest into the calm of the room. The wind rattles faintly outside, but inside, the air is still and warm. Deep winter snow has fallen silently through the night. The rooftops and paths are covered in white. The air outside is crisp and still. A visitor arrives at the door, presses the bell. Inside, a soft chime sounds. The door opens to reveal warmth, light, and the faint aroma of baking bread. The guest steps inside, snow melting gently from their coat. Outro letting the story restand now. The story of the doorbell comes to a close, from the quiet knock on wooden doors long ago to the gentle press of a modern button today. Every sound has carried the same soft meaning. A visitor arrives. A home answers, and life moves quietly on. The sound fades now. The door is closed. The path outside is empty. Evening settles softly over the street. The air is calm. The world has grown quiet. You can rest here too. There is nothing left to open, nothing left to wait for. The doorbell is silent. The story is silent. Only stillness remains. Let your breath match the calm, slow and steady. Let your thoughts drift, light as dust in the evening light. The story will stay here, patient, quiet, just beyond the door. You can drift now into that quiet, into that stillness, letting each word fade a little more. With every moment, the sound is gone, the night is calm, and you can sleep.